Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Victoria Kalina. I am the media manager at Reflex Marine, and I will be moderating today's session. I hope you enjoyed the introductory videos we shared featuring some of our products. I would like to start with some housekeeping rules. Today's webinar is scheduled to last about 1 hour, including the Q&A session at the end. All attendees are automatically muted to allow our speaker to present without interruption. Questions can be submitted via the chat box on the right-hand side at any time during the webinar. I encourage you to submit your questions as they arise, and we will be responding to all questions during the Q&A session at the end. The presentation recording will be emailed to you approximately 48 hours after the session. All our webinars are also available to view on demand on our YouTube channel. Okay, then, as I'm not seeing any remarks or questions in the chat right now, I think we're ready to get started. And our speaker for today's presentation is Ms. Sandra Antonovic, Refle Marines Chief Operating Officer. Sandra is responsible for global commercial development and strategic business positioning at Refle Marine, leading the opening of new markets. Sandra's operational expertise focuses on business transition, diversification, and strategic growth. Today, Sandra will tell us a bit more about our solution for high-volume transfers, the FROG-XT-10. Sandra, over to you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll try to keep the webinar up to an hour. And I'll walk you through the product itself, but I'll also talk about which clients use XT10, and specifically I will share some information on how BP is using XT10 unit. BP has the largest fleet of XT10 units of all our clients. Here on this first slide, you can see two images. So one on your right-hand side is the unit itself on the deck of a vessel. And you can see the inside of the unit, so you can see how the seats are spaced out, how much space there is in the unit. You can kind of get an understanding how it would feel to be inside the unit. You can also see stainless steel frame, yellow buoyancies all around, and you can see, if you look underneath, you can see shock absorbing feet. Why are these important? So the buoyancy, of course, is helping the unit float and self-right if for whatever reason it would end up in the water. So the unit would float and the water level would be just above your waist, your waistline. And if it would be dropped upside down, and chances of that I don't have to explain you, I'm sure that everyone who is on this webinar knows this much better than I do. The chances of the unit being dropped upside down are probably 1 in 10 billion. The unit would self-right in about 4 seconds. The shock absorbing feet are there to absorb the impact when the unit is landing. Additionally, the suspension system would additionally absorb the impact. So the feeling a passenger would have when they're in the unit and the unit is landing on a deck would be similar to the feeling you have when an airplane is landing on a runway. The buoyancy, apart from enabling the unit to float and self-right, helps protect the passengers against any lateral impact. So while they would feel the impact, the stainless steel frame and the buoyancy would protect them against a direct injury. So that's another reason why they're there. On the left-hand side, just underneath the title, you can see a render of XT10 showing what it looks like in full medevac mode. So you can see 2 stretchers in full medevac mode. The unit can hold 2 stretchers with injured people and can accommodate paramedic as well. So why don't we get started? Here is another nice image, close-up image of FROG-XT-10. Again, gives you quite a good insight view of the unit. You can see the ergonomic seats protecting the spine of passengers. We use MIRA methodology during design process and also during testing process. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, MIRA methodology is used in car industry, and when the cars are being tested, whether they're safe to use, they would follow that methodology, and we adopted it, and we try to follow their guidelines during the testing process. Here we have, this is of course not FROG-XT-10, these are FROG-9s. Why am I showing you this image? The first high capacity unit that Reflex Marine developed was FROG-9, and then out of FROG-9 derived FROG-XT-10. So some of you or all of you on the call are probably familiar that we had FROG range, which is still in use by many clients. So we still have quite a lot of clients using this quote unquote old FROG range in their operations offshore. We had FROG-3 for 3 passengers and FROG-6 for 6 passengers. And then we had one client, Refle Marine, came to us and asked us whether we can develop a high capacity unit. So they wanted a higher capacity than 6 passengers. At that time, they were working with Sonangol, offshore Angola in deep and ultra deep water. And their requirement at the time was to move between 90 and 120 people per day. And they needed something for crane transfer. So they specifically wanted something for crane transfer, but they also wanted to reduce the time of transferring 100 people. So they wanted a high capacity unit. Their method, they developed their own methodology of how they're going to do the transfers using our products. And they always have 2 units aboard the vessel, right? So they have 2 units and they can do transfer of high volume of people in a fairly short period of time. Sometimes they would have 3 units altogether, where the 3rd unit would be on rotation. So the 3rd unit would be in storage and would be ready to deploy at any moment. And then when either of these units would be serviced, the 3rd unit would then be switched, right? So that they minimize the downtime. So we practically developed FROG-9 at a specific requirement from Refle Marine. Refle Marine later used the same type of unit, so high capacity unit in Caspian as well. And then they converted when we developed XT-10 and when we developed the entire XT range, which replaced the old FROG range. So now we have FROG-XT-4 for 4 passengers, FROG-XT-6 for 6 passengers, and FROG-XT-10 for 10 passengers. So once we had FROG-XT-10 tested and certified, then they slowly switched from FROG-9 to XT-10. So now their fleet includes XT-10 units rather than FROG-9. This story is important because it is a good introduction to me walking you through how BP is using units in a few moments. So let's see what we have on this slide. Here we have, again, I'm still talking about Refle Marine. So Refle Cheetah, one of their vessels, you can see FROG-9 there by red containers. And you can see on your right-hand side how they were using 2 units on the same vessel, right? We have one video that Victoria is going to share with you in the chat box. I'm not going to play it during the webinar. It's a bit too long, and as we are trying to keep the time to under an hour, I decided not to show it. But please do watch it after the webinar when you have time. It's about 5 or 6 minute video, and it shows, so the video was developed by Refle Marine. It explains the usage of FROG-9. It can also be applied to any other frog type of product, so it doesn't specifically have to be FROG-9. And it's quite interesting because it gives you an insight in sort of how they were approaching the crane transfer. It's a public video, so you can share it. It's available on YouTube. So this link that that Victoria just shared is a public link. The video was created more than a decade ago, so it's of course free to share if you want to share it within your organization or outside your organization. Here are some methods of transfer in marine environment. So of course there are some others that we perhaps didn't include here, but here one of some of the most often used. So we have crane transfer, we have helicopter transfer, we have gangways, and then we have some other options, right? So the way we look at frogs is we don't see them as a replacement for another type of transfer or for another method of transfer. So this is not a story of me trying to convince anybody that you should ditch helicopters and you should be using frogs, or you should stay away from gangways and you should be using frogs. I don't think it's that simple, and I don't think it is black and white. I think the way we see frogs, and we have always looked at where is our place in the offshore universe, so to speak, is we are complementing different methods of transfer. And we are adding value in a way that we are helping you extend your operating envelope. How do we do that? So let's say that you're using helicopters, say that you are in deep water and you're using helicopters to get your crew from the shore to the field. And then in the field, you're using gangways to get them around the field. You would encounter, depending on the geographical region, and then consequently depending on the weather conditions, you would encounter situations where you wouldn't be able to use helicopter for the interfield transfer. Neither would you be able to use gangway for interfield transfer for whatever reason. Low visibility, high wind, high sea states, so higher than normal significant wave height, fog, night, you have an emergency situation, smoke, or you have an injured person, and you need to remove that injured person quickly from the operation. So what FROG offers you is a chance to quickly put it in operation and to quickly make a transfer that you otherwise wouldn't be able to make with helicopter or with gangway. When I say quickly, what does that actually mean? If you are following the recommended policies and procedures laid out in our user manual, then your FROG would be serviced and certified at any time. And it would be, if it's stored on a deck, it would be properly stored, so covered with a protective cover to protect it from elements, perhaps lifted from the deck using chokes or anything else to protect the shock absorbing feet. So the time that it would take you to put the unit in service would be the time that it would take you to lift the protective cover and to visually inspect the unit that everything is okay before people go in. And then the transfer itself would take about 5 minutes. So it gives you flexibility. When you have an emergency situation, you don't have time to wait for the helicopter. If the helicopter is not on a helideck, you don't have time to set up the gangway, or you, for whatever reason, you are unable to use the gangway. But you still need to transfer people urgently. So that's one of the scenarios where FROG would become very, very useful. Another scenario would be in routine transfer. So you are deciding to cut your costs, and you are making a decision to use the helicopter to transfer people from shore to the field if you are far away from shore. But then in the field, you're making a decision to reduce the cost of transfer without compromising safety. And you are using FROGs for interfield transfers, because that way you're going to reduce your transfer costs tremendously compared to gangways and helicopters. But you are going to keep the level of safety that you would have using either of those options, or you would increase the level of safety using the FROG. There are some other ways that the FROG is useful. I will share them when I get to BP case study. So just to summarize now what I've explained, there is never just one option to transfer your crew. The restructured industry, so the world that we live in today, which probably started happening with the last oil price, not the last oil price crisis, but the oil price crisis from 2015. The last one was obviously last year when the oil price was negative. But I'm referring to the oil price crisis back in 2015. So since then, we are seeing more and more companies converting themselves to become leaner organizations, and not just becoming leaner organizations as companies, but also having leaner operations. So they're trying to keep their cost flat, or they're trying to reduce their cost, but they're trying to increase their output. And we see situations where projects that used to last for 2 years or for 3 years are now being condensed into 6-month, 9-month period. So the operator and the contractor would get in and out quickly with some specific projects. Obviously, with fields, it is still the same situation. Fields are being operated for many years. that restructured industry requires everyone to be more flexible. It requires everyone, your entire supply chain has to be more flexible. So that includes us. We also have to be more flexible, but that includes the way you are transferring people. So you need to have more flexibility to do the impromptu transfers, to do ad hoc transfers, to do transfers out of the schedule. And particularly with last year's and this year's pandemic, you have to be able to transfer unpredictable, to make a transfer for unpredictable situations. If somebody gets sick, if somebody develops symptoms, if somebody is unable to perform, or for whatever other reason, you need to, that's an out of planned transfer, right? But you still need to get that people out and to the safety. So FROG gives you that option. And of course, the thing that I mentioned a couple of times, lower costs. So the cost of the FROG compared to the capacity of the unit and the lifespan of the unit makes the overall cost and the cost per transfer and the cost per passenger in the rate of petty cash compared to gangways and helicopters, and I mean literally petty cash. Victoria will share with you FROG-XT-10 user manual. So there you will see, you will have the data sheet, you will have the instructions how to use the unit. But what I want to stress now, you will have the inspection and maintenance schedule. So recommended inspection and maintenance schedule based on the usage of the unit. So how often you are using the unit. And then it will give you also the lifespan of the unit based on the usage. So you can get an idea what is the investment actually going to be. If you're purchasing the unit plus replacement parts plus servicing, blah, 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 or you can opt for rental options. I will mention those in a little bit more detail when I get to BP. So again, to summarize, FROG are quick to put in service, have long lifespan, wide operating envelope, are simple and cost effective to service and maintain, and we offer rental options. I'll explain them in a second. And again, I've already covered all this. So just to summarize, so you can use the FROG for routine transfer, for contingency. In extreme weather conditions, we have over 30 units in Sakhalin, and we also have over 20 units now in Yamal project up north in Russia again. We also have over 100 units in North Sea. So they operate really well in Arctic conditions. We also have more than 30 units in Canada. For high volume transfers, so particularly FROG-XT-10, the type of unit we are talking about today, medevac, I've explained that, and then the other types of emergency situations, I've explained that as well. Low visibility, fog, night, dusk, dawn, smoke, volcanoes, ash, whatever, can impair your vision and prevent the use of another method of transfer. So helicopters wouldn't be used in some of the low visibility scenarios, but FROG would be used. So here we have, this is of course not XT-10, but I thought this image would be quite interesting because it shows one of our clients, Wagenborg. It shows Ampleman and a FROG on the same vessel, right? So they are using FROG as a backup option for gangway. and they're using it to increase and to improve their overall operating envelope. So when they're unable to use Implement, then they use FROG, and also for emergency and for medevac situations. And in situations of low visibility, they would use FROG again. I will come back to Implement in a second when I talk about BP. So let's talk about BP. Since I mentioned them so many times, everyone is probably wondering what I have to say. BP is currently the owner of the largest XT-10 fleet in the world. Other users of XT-10 are Dubai Petroleum, Modec, ENI, and Bumi Armada. But by far, BP has the largest fleet. So they have 5 units in Caspian, and they have 3 units offshore Angola. Offshore Angola, again, they're working with Secor, and the units are aboard Secor's vessel. They have 3 units altogether, so 1 is in rotation. They use 2 units each day, and here, so they don't make transfers with the FROG every single day. But here you can see, so I've used the data that they have supplied us from a year ago, because it's old enough for it to be shared publicly. So it is not confidential anymore. But here you can have an idea how many lifts per day they're doing, and here you have the type of vessel, Secor Puma, and you also can see under comments the sea state swell, and so you can see that some days they're doing between 6 and 10. Actually, most of the days they're doing between 6 to 10 lifts per day. Obviously, they're not doing lifts every single day, but if you look at February here, it's often enough. So they're using it quite a lot. You can see the average significant wave height, and you can see the maximum significant wave height as well. It can give you an idea of the weather conditions and sea states that they are operating in, and the usage category that all this data gives them is medium. This is FROG-XT-10 and where it's currently being used. So North Sea, West Africa, Middle East, Caspian. So let's go to Caspian again, BP. This time without Secor, but still BP. So in Caspian, BP uses Implement to transfer their crew, but they use XT-10 when Implement is not being used because of the weather conditions. So they have internally quite strict procedures. What do they consider a safe operating envelope for Implement, and then what do they consider a safe operating envelope for helicopters, for example? They're using FROG to increase the operating envelope. So when following their own procedures, they deem that use of Implement would be unsafe. So again, according to their procedures, perhaps not to what Implement would state as their operating envelope, then they would convert, transfer to FROG, and they would continue to operate, and they would use the FROG in the periods of day where either the sea state is such that the Implement shouldn't be used, or the visibility is very low, or the wind is such where they are deciding to convert to crane option. Now, for some, this might pose a question, can a crane transfer really have a higher operating envelope than Ampleman? If you look in theory, the operating envelopes would be similar. However, in practice, it doesn't really work like that. In practice, normally clients who are using Ampleman would use FROG, whether it's FROG-XT-10 or another type of XT FROG, as a backup option to increase or to make sure that they're expanding their operating envelope and that they're getting as many hours during the day as possible for operations, so that their downtime is minimal. And more clients who are using Ampleman would buy FROG or would rent a FROG as a backup option. And we have worked with Ampleman together in some cases where we would make the assessment of how the combination of two methods would allow the client to extend the operating envelope they're currently having. The XT operating envelope on average is up to 4 meters significant wave height and up to 40 knots of wind. And of course, in some locations, the vessel master or the crane operator would hold the operation before you actually get to those limits. But they wouldn't need to hold the operation because of FROG. They would hold the operation for other reasons, right? So let's see what we have here. So this is just quickly I've touched on some of this at the beginning of the presentation, how to make sure that your unit is always ready for use and is safe and protected from elements. So you should have a dedicated storage and landing area on the platform or a vessel. It should be a clear area with controlled access. We strongly advise clients to use weatherproof covers. They make a world of difference in terms of extending the lifespan of the unit. And they're not expensive when you think about the value that they're adding. I've mentioned that in some operations and in some areas, clients might want to lift the unit when it's stored to protect the shock absorbing feet by using pallet chocks, skid trolleys, or any other way just to lift the unit a little bit off the ground. And then if it's stored for a longer period of time, the sling should be removed and the unit should be completely raised off the deck. Some clients also keep stock of basic replacement parts in the user manual that Victoria shared. In the chat box, you will find the recommended inspection and maintenance schedule, which will give you, and then a little bit later in the user manual, we give you the list of parts. So you can easily figure out which parts you would need to change when, and then each company makes a decision whether they want to keep a low stock on some parts or whether they just want to buy parts prior to annual inspection. We have an extensive network of partners, of service partners, with trained and certified technicians. In that sense, we are able to support your operations regardless of where you are in the world. Okay, so wherever you may be on a vessel or on a platform, if you need your unit serviced, you would get in touch with us, and we would then advise you which is the closest location to you, which of our approved service partners and they would be able to perform the service either offshore or onshore, depending on your operations and your preference. We also had situations where we would deploy our own technicians in cases when we were the closest, or when a partner perhaps was too busy or had too many jobs stacked up. So there is also that possibility. Either way, so whoever does the service, we are controlling the process. So there is no difference whether we would be servicing your unit or whether a service partner would be servicing your unit. The quality of work and the control of the work would be exactly the same, and we would still be part of every single step. We think it's important. We think it's important to control that process, not because we don't have confidence in our partners, far from that. I think we work with very good companies, and I think they have tremendously talented people who are working on our products. I think it's important because it sort of closes the circle of collaboration rather than just providing a simple service. Because then everyone in the conversation, the partner, the client, and us, understand your particular requirements, your particular needs, your particular weather conditions, and how often are you using the unit and in which types of scenarios. So then everyone is on the same page, everyone is clear with what is going on. It is very transparent process, and it works much better this way than when the conversation is just two-way, right? Moving on, so this is how it looks like. I didn't have an image with XT-10 covered, but you will get an idea. So this is how it looks like when the unit is properly stored on the deck of a vessel and covered to protect the unit from elements. Now going back to the user manual that Victoria shared. So for each type of unit, we have the user manual. We also can share the identification drawings if you want to simulate the unit being on a deck of a vessel or on a platform, see whether you have enough space, try to simulate certain scenarios from your operation, so we can do that. And we also have the inspection and maintenance manual. Most of these documents are available on our website, reflexmarine.com. If you go to support tab, there is a download section, and you can download them for free. You can just select what you need. In case you can't find what you need, just send us an email to info@reflexmarine.com, and we'll send you the right document. We also offer training. So some of our clients prefer to do the inspection and maintenance themselves. One example would be Dragon Oil. So daughter company of Dubai Petroleum, they're operating in Turkmenistan. So they are one of the companies that prefer to do their own inspection and maintenance, which means that then we train them and we certify them for that. Most of our clients would use our service partners. So they would come to us, we would then give them the location of the closest service partner, and we would coordinate the process and supervise that process. The training before the pandemic was on site, and it has two sessions, one a classroom session and the practical session. Now, of course, we are doing everything online during the pandemic period, and but hopefully once all this is behind us, then we'll go back to doing training either in in one of our facilities or at a partner's or client's facility. This is the user pack that comes with every unit, regardless whether you rent it or buy it. It has a hard copy of the user manual. You would also get a soft copy of the user manual. You would get a full cert pack for the unit, and you would get the user briefing and some other useful videos, which are also available on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and just type in Reflex Marine in the search box, it will take you to our channel, and it has a lot of useful videos and user briefings for every type of unit. It also has all the previous webinars that we've done, and some of them might be quite useful. So briefing videos that I just explained, and the download section on our website. This one is also available on our website, Offshore Personnel Transfer by Crane, Best Practices Guideline for Routine and Emergency Operations. So I've touched on some of that today. If you would like a copy, either send us an email. Here is a link for download, or go to our website, and again, support tab, download section, and you can find this document. I'll stop here. So we had a question before the webinar, and the question was, are you saying it is the safest crane-based personnel transfer system, or the safest system out of all personnel transfer systems, active gangways, stair towers, and the like? It is both. So comparing any type of transfer basket, if we say that if we put FROG in the category of basket, and I could argue that easily, because if you have a picture of Billy Pugh, for example, and the FROG, they look completely different. Even if you have a picture of a safe transfer and the FROG, they look completely different. But let's put it in the box with other transfer baskets, whether they're rigid or collapsible. We would be the safest option for crane transfer, yes. Looking at any type of transfer, so helicopters, gangways, any other type of transfer, again, we would be the safest. Because we are now in 11th year without a lost time incident. So we didn't have a casualty, didn't have a lost time incident, and didn't have a fatality. While gangways didn't have a fatality, they did have lost time incidents. And then for helicopters, I hope I don't need to explain and go into the fatality statistics for helicopters. So I think it is the question of perception of safety, right? So it is the perception of safety. Our perception is that helicopters are the safest. And yes, they are perhaps the most comfortable and they feel the safest, but in reality, it doesn't really work like that. So they don't rank as high as we sometimes think they do. And same goes for gangways. So gangways don't have, luckily they don't have fatalities, but they did have a few lost time incidents, both in Europe and in some other parts of the world. So we are keeping the incident data database, our own internal database. We have shared it with some clients after they've signed the NDA. So it is not like we are keeping it secret. And it was verified. So based on that database, we, in 2014, we wrote a report, which you can see on your right-hand side, and it's available for download on our website. I'm not sure if Victoria, if we have a copy we can share perhaps in the handouts. or yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so Victoria shared a copy of the report with you as well. So while we did write the report, it was verified and it was actually published by DNV. So they have agreed with the findings that we had after analyzing the incident data database. So that is quite a useful read, and it explains the risk perception versus statistical evidence, right? Here, the images in the banner on the top of the slide is our current off-the-shelf portfolio. So the first 3 units are FROG-XT range, 4, 6, and 10 passenger. Then we have Wave 4. Wave 4 has same or very similar safety features to FROG-XT range. The main difference is that people are standing. They're not seated, they're standing. And it is the rigid basket with the smallest footprint. Again, if we are in the basket box, then this one would have the smallest footprint. We now have also FROG-XT-10, a 2-passenger unit that we designed specifically for LNG and for offshore wind, but of course it can be used in other types of operations. And then on your far right, we have Stormwork, an improved traditional work basket, so it floats itself right, so has same safety features and capabilities like the personal transfer carriers. It also has anti-snagging features, so it's much more safer than the old-fashioned work baskets. I've mentioned the MIRA standard at the beginning of the presentation, and here you have some data on the testing. If you go on our YouTube channel, you can see the testing videos, so you can see how we test the product, and they're quite good videos to watch. The standard type of approval that we use is CE marking because the manufacturing is in Europe, but we can provide upon request ABS statement of fact, RMRS certification, or any other type of certification that a client would require. So we do that upon request. And that would be it for today. So I'm happy now to answer any questions. I think we had one question. Victoria, if we can share that maybe.
Yes, it's a very specific question to one of our old range products, but I think your answer will probably be valid for the rest of our products as well. So the question was, we have got a FROG-free built in 2010, and it has been tested in 2015. Can we test it again and allow it for use since it's already 10 years old?
So I would need to know the unit number, right? So I would need to know the unit number, and I would need to know a little bit about the history of the unit. So technically now the unit is 10 years old. Say that you have followed the recommended inspection and maintenance policies and procedures and recommendations from the user manual, and you were storing the unit in the appropriate way, and you were in the low usage category. So you didn't use it every day, or you didn't use it a lot. What would happen is we would, depending on where the location of the unit is, it would be either us or an approved service partner who would need to visually inspect the unit and then do the full assessment of the unit in a sense whether any parts need to be changed, particular in a critical load path. And then we might, so I'm using conditional because I don't have enough information here. We might then grant you to recertify the unit and extend the lifespan. We did have those situations, so we did extend that for some units, and we did allow them to extend their lifespan. But I would need to have the unit number, and I would need to have some history of the unit, perhaps the report from 2015, if you have it, or any more recent reports from servicing. Okay, FS 398, great. What I'm going to do is, if you can either leave your email here, or if you can email me at info@reflexmarine.com. Victoria can type the email in the chat box. I'm going to check the history of this particular unit. And if you send me your email, I will get back to you today, if that helps. Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, great. Okay, so next month, sorry, go ahead. Okay, sorry. So next month, we'll be talking about stonework that I mentioned just a few slides ago. So we'll be walking you through the work basket and what is the best to use it, and how some companies are using it. So we'll talk about Seaway heavy lifting, now Seaway 7, and ConocoPhillips, and how they are using stonework. But before that, we have decommissioning webinar. So we'll have 2 webinars in February. One will be specifically for stonework, and the other one will be for decommissioning. But again, I will touch a little bit on stonework in that one. In case you're interested, do come and join us. Thank you, Aras. I have your emails now. I'll come back to you by the end of the day with information on this specific unit. Thank you very much. And to wrap this up, here are the contact details. So the email that I've repeated a few times during the presentation, our website, and we are on social media. I would say the most important one is YouTube channel. Lots of useful videos there for free. User briefings, crane operator briefings, how to convert the unit in a stretcher mode, different videos from FROG in use, and then Victoria has shared the link earlier for the Secor briefing that they created for their team. And I hope all of this was helpful. If you have any questions afterwards, or once you've gone through the video or through the user manual, please don't hesitate to get in touch, and our engineering and operations team would be happy to help. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Have a lovely day, everyone. And if you would like to share this video with any of your colleagues, it will be available on YouTube, and we will email you the recording shortly. Thank you.
Bye.